So good morning everyone, I am Danea A. Dukay and today we're going to discuss one of the most important theories in developmental psychology, the Erickson's theory of psychosocial development. This theory gives us a powerful framework for understanding how we grow and change throughout sa atuang lives, gikan pagpanganak hangtod sa pagtigulang nato. So before we will proceed sa introduction, this is our objectives. So by the end of this presentation, we want you to be able to do three main things. So first is to identify the key conflict, virtue, maladaptation, and malignancy for each stages of development. Next is to explore the impact of cultural and societal factors in the progression and resolution of Erickson's stage. And lastly is to analyze the applicability of Erickson's theory in various educational and personal contexts. So now, let's meet the man behind the theory, Erickson. So he was a German-American psychoanalyst who is considered the father of developmental psychology. His work was definitely influenced by Sigmund Freud, but Erickson broadened Freud's focus. Si Freud manggod kay ga-focus primarily sa childhood and biological drives, while Erickson looked at development across sa ato ang entire nga lifespan and gi-highlight niya ang importance sa cultural and social influences. So dali ra kayo understand ang iyang theory, but grabe ka powerful in explaining the complex challenges we all face as we grow. The next is the epigenetic principle. So the foundation of Erickson's theory is something called the epigenetic principle. This concept sounds complicated, but it's really quite simple. So think of it like this quote says, "We grow and develop in 8 stages, each building on the success or struggles of earlier stages." So ang perfect analogy ani niya is a rosebud nga ga-open petal by petal. Each petal must open in the right order and at the right time. You can skip a petal and expect a healthy flower. Similarly, we go through 8 stages of development in a fixed order. So kung unsay mahitabo sa early stage, dako kaayo siyang impact sa kung unsa nato nimo siya paghandle ang next. And now, the introduction to psychosocial crisis. So each stages involves a psychosocial crisis, a conflict between two opposing forces. So if a stage is managed well, we carry a certain virtue. But if it don't do so well, we may develop maladaptations and malignancies. So in simple terms, a psychosocial crisis is a conflict between two opposing forces that we face at a specific age. So if you look at the diagram on the left, you can see the two forces listed for each stage, like trust versus mistrust in infancy. So if we manage the conflict well, meaning we find a healthy balance, we carry a positive strength into the next stage, which Erickson calls a virtue. But if we don't manage it so well, we can develop less healthy tendencies. So these are called the maladaptations, which are less harmful, like being too trusting, and malignancies, which are more serious and debilitating, like being unable to trust anyone. So now that we've covered the basics, the man, the principle, and the crisis, we can move on to exploring each of the 8 stages in detail.
So first stage is the trust versus mistrust and infancy stage. So, in psychosocial crisis, the infant learns to either trust or mistrust their caregivers and the world around them. So, during infancy, babies learn whether they can trust the world and the people around them. This is based on how will their caregivers meet their needs. So, and their virtue is hope. Hope is belief that even when things are difficult, there are a positive future. And maladaptation or trait and behavior is sensory adjustment. They may ignore warning signs and put themselves in vulnerable situations. And malignancy withdrawal, the individual became isolated, suspicious, and unable to form meaningful relationship. For example, the baby cry because they are hungry. If ikaw ang caregiver, if kanang bantayan nimo nga ang baby ni cry because he or she is hungry, then imo di siyang i-feed lovely, then the baby maka-learn na siya nga na siya trust ninyo kay iyang need na mag-met bitaw inyong iyang needs tungod ninyo. Then if the caregiver kanang gineglect niya bitaw. So like marag inconsistency mo kuan sa baby, so ang baby makafeel siya og mistrust. So the next is the stage 2, the autonomy versus shame and doubt. So in the stage of early childhood, in psychosocial crisis, the toddlers seek to gain independence and self-control. So the toddler begins to assert their independence. They want to do things for themselves if they are allowed to try and succeed, or even they make mistakes. So they develop a sense of autonomy. If they are constantly criticized or controlled, they may develop shame or doubt of their abilities. Their virtue is willpower, determination. Willpower is ability to make choice and pursue goal with determination. And their maladaptation is impulsiveness. They may struggle with boundaries and respecting the needs of others. And malignancy, compulsiveness. The individual will become overcritical for themselves and others. So, for example of this autonomy versus shame and doubt is the toddler may dress themselves if the parents nga gi-encourage siya nga kanang ikaw gid bitaw nga like ang bata gid ang mo kuan ang musulob sa sina even though ga-struggle siya and how to kanang mo kuan sa button bitaw. So ang bata makakuan siya og autonomy sa iyang kaugalingon. If ang kuan naman, if ang parents naman kay ay ako na lang kan primera ang parents bitaw marag gina-spoil nila ang bata. So ang bata kay maka-gain siya of lack of abilities. So the next stage is stage 3, initiative versus guilt, mostly in early school stages. So, in psychosocial crisis, the child begins to take initiative on their action and play, leading to sense of purpose or guilt if they overstep boundaries. So, preschoolers start to take initiative by planning an activity and playing and making up games. If they are encouraged and support in their initiative, they may develop a sense of purpose. If they criticize or punish for their efforts, they may feel guilty. And their virtue is a purpose. Purpose is ability to set goal and pursue them with determination and sense of direction. And maladaptation, it is ruthlessness. Is unhealthy outcome where the individual is over-aggressive, competitive, and lack of empathy for others. And malignancy, inhibition, is one of the opposite end. A malignancy result in complete task of initiative and creativity. And for example of initiative and guilt is a child organize a tea party for their toy, like kadula ang bata. So if ang bata magdula, like ikaw nga parents mo join bito kaniya nga gadula ang imong bata, like magdudula sad ka kamudua. So ang bata maka-feel og kanang initiative sa iyang kaugalingon. Ikaw na mga parents nga masuko dayon ka nga mo ang bata mo kuan mo kanang magdula ba magkatag-katag, so ang bata maka-feel siya og kanang guilty sa iyang kaugalingon og kanang mo taking charge bitaw sa iyang guilt. So mauna nga dapat ikaw nga parents kabalo bitaw ka mo handle kung unsa kinahanglan sa bata. Mo na siya. So next stage is stage 4, the industry versus inferiority in school age 5 to 12 years old. So in psychosocial crisis, the child learns to cope with social and academic demands. So school-age children face the challenges and learning new skills, admitting academic demands. If they succeed and they recognize for their accomplishment, they may develop the industry or the competence. If they struggle and they feel don't measure up, they may feel a sense of inferiority. So in virtue, competence. Competence is the belief that in one ability to master skills and achieve goal. And maladaptation is narrow virtuosity. They may neglect other areas of their life and begin overly critical for themselves and others. And malignancy is inertia. The individual become passive and withdrawn and feel incapable of achieving anything. Example of this industry versus inferiority. If a child work hard on the school project or receive good grade, they succeed help them feel industrious or capable. If the child consistently struggle with schoolwork and feel they cannot keep up with their peers, they may develop a feeling of inferiority.
Stage 5. Identity versus rule confusion. So magsugod ni siya in our adolescence at the age of 12 to 18 years old. Psychosocial crisis. The teenager works on developing a unified sense of self by exploring different rules and ideas.
Example: a teenager who develops a strong sense of self by experimenting with hobbies like gardening, which leads to a stable identity as a gardener.
During these years, teenagers actively work on developing a unified sense of self. This involves exploring various rules, beliefs, and ideas to find out who they truly are. Virtue, if successfully navigating this stage, leads to fidelity, meaning the ability to commit to loyalties and values despite inevitable contradictions. Maladaptation, fanaticism occurs when an individual becomes so committed to a particular rule or group that they tolerate no criticism of it.
Malignancy. Repudiation is the opposite, where an individual rejects all rules and values, leading to a sense of aimlessness and isolation. Stage 6. Intimacy versus isolation. It starts in young adulthood at the age of 18 to 40 years old. Psychosocial crisis. The young adult forms intimate, loving relationship with others. Example of intimacy is when two people develop a deep, trusting connection, openly sharing their thoughts and feelings, leading to mutual support in a romantic relationship or close friendships. In contrast, an example of isolation is when someone avoids social interaction, lacking a strong support system and experiencing feelings of loneliness, disconnection, or despair. Virtue. Success here results in love, characterized by deep care and commitment to another person. Maladaptation. Promiscuity involves intimate relationships without true closeness, often leading to superficial connections. Malignancy. Exclusion is a tendency to isolate oneself from others, avoiding intimacy in close relationships. Stage 7. Generativity versus stagnation. Magsugod ni siya in middle adulthood at the age of 40 to 65 years old. Psychosocial crisis. The adult seeks to nurture things that will outlast them, often through raising children or creating a positive change in the community. An example of generativity is a middle-aged person mentoring a younger colleague at work, while an example of stagnation is that same person feeling stuck and self-absorbed, uninterested in guiding others.
Virtue. The positive outcome is care, a broad concern for others and a desire to contribute to the next generation. Maladaptation. Overextension means trying to be generative in too many areas, leading to burnout and a lack of real impact. Malignancy. Rejectivity is the refusal to participate in or contribute to society, often leading to a sense of unfulfillment and self-absorption. Stage 8. Ego integrity versus despair. Magsugod din siya in late adulthood at the age of 65 years old to death. So, psychosocial crisis, the older adult reflects on their life either feeling a sense of fulfillment or regret.
An example of ego integrity is an elderly person reflecting on their life with satisfaction and acceptance, feeling pride in their accomplishments and believing they made a positive impact, even acknowledging past mistakes as part of a meaningful journey. Conversely, an example of despair is an older adult filled with regret, feeling their life was wasted or unfulfilled, regretting missed opportunities, poor choices, and the inability to make amends, leading to feelings of bitterness and a fear of death.
Virtue. A successful resolution grants wisdom and informed and detached concern with life itself in the face of death. Maladaptation. Presumption is when an individual assumes a sense of integrity without genuinely reflecting on their life. Malignancy. Disdain is a feeling of contempt for life, both one's own and that of others, often stemming from unresolved regrets.